right. Welcome to the Thursday night live stream. I got to tell you guys, every time we do that, we get on beforehand, we do some prepping, we're talking, and without fail, like right when I hit that countdown timer, people have to do things. Like I got to run over, pick up a mug. Like it's like we have all that prep time, but right at the end, we still have something to do last second. It's like you see the moments counting down until you are alive. So anyway, it happens time and time again, but it is always fun. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday Night Live Stream. We're going to give folks some time to pile in as it was a busy week in Star Wars. I mean, I think everyone we were talking about before the show, it was full of things to talk about, full of really big announcements. And obviously, one of the marquee Star Wars shows is releasing weekly episodes again. So it's a big stream of content we haven't had in a long time. So let's go around in our triangle here and check in with you guys, see how everyone's doing. We'll start at the bottom with Ben from Star Wars Timeline. What's going on this week? How have you been? How's the new year starting for you? What are you up to?
Hi, how are you guys? Great to be with you again, chatting about Star Wars. I think we're going to have to say a lot of good things about this particular show, what's happening in the Star Wars world, the High Republic, all that good stuff. I decided to begin my New Year's resolution with changing up my setup. As you could see, the wall behind me is empty. Ordered some cool shelf. Like I want to look out like a pro decked out super duper YouTuber that people look like he's the greatest Star Wars channel. I mean, like On High is decent, Complete is good too, but this one on the bottom, he's right there. That's the next big guy,
There you go.
I think it's gonna look good, and there's a lot of more stuff that you want to do, but you have to pace yourself. So that's where I'm at. Like what kind of videos you want to do in the future, what kind of stuff you expect to get in terms of content from Star Wars.
It's true. And we are excited to see what that background looks like. It's an open canvas. As you guys know, I'm not going to rip my computer up now, but this whole wall I have empty over here, and I'm thinking of things I can do. Sometimes I do those videos from the side. I'm like, what can I do over there? It is tempting, but you're right. You got to pace yourself because A, it's expensive, and B, you're like, you got to let it. You get so excited, you got to let the vision ride. Hey to Blue Pig. Hey to Seamus. Welcome, guys. We'll pass it over to Jimmy. For those who don't know, I'll go ahead and say it. Jimmy has started to make some content on this channel. Obviously, he's here for Thursday night streams, but he's also been doing some breakdown videos. You guys are going to see more of those throughout the new year. So that will be exciting as we get started. That was kind of a New Year's change up for us. But what else do you got going on, Jimmy, over there? What have you been reading? What have you been doing? How was the Christmas holiday? Tell us what's going on.
Christmas was really good. New Year so far so good. Everything's covered in ice right now outside, so driving takes 3 times as long. But my recently finished Leia, phenomenal read. I have a review on my channel if you haven't checked that out. Well worth your time. I'm still not going to read Thrawn yet. I'm going to jump right into the Fallen Star when I get it. And I'm also going to have to take that clip from Star Wars Timeline from a few minutes ago and use that to expose him to the world for thinking that we're okay channels. The Clone War is starting right here.
Are you going to put the laser eyes too?
Yeah.
Right. Then I'm down with that.
Start the beef off early, and that way you get all the views, right?
Yep,
good work, guys.
Expose somebody.
That's right. Well, as we're waiting for folks to get in, I did want to call it a couple things. One of which is, as far as the Fallen Star is concerned, I do own it. I have started it. I'm not anywhere near finished, so there ain't gonna be any spoilers here. I'm just gonna say that right off the top. I can't even spoil it for you if I wanted to. So anyone who's reading that is safe.
Nobody within a mile of me has it in stock. Not a mile.
Within
an hour drive from me, nobody has it.
I'm still back in the bus, man, with the High Republic reading. I still have 2 books from last year to finish up before I touch this one.
You got this.
We're going to be talking about that as well with the High Republic announcements this week. There is such a large amount of content right now for the High Republic, and that's one of the things we're gonna address is maybe are they doing so much it's going to be hard for readers to keep up. We'll see. We will see. I did order my copy out of print, Fallen Star, so excited for whenever that shows up. But I'm doing Audible, But I'm doing the Audible version for now, as you guys know. So just got that kicked off today. It was hard because it launched, and I was really busy that day. And the next day was Boba Fett, and then today is obviously the stream. So I just got started today. Regardless, though, the thing leading off our show, I think I am way late to the party, as I am with a lot of these reviews, given my work schedule. But the second episode of the Book of Boba Fett came out. And it was something that I was, I like the Wednesday format, as I think I told everyone here. I like the midweek kind of pick me up. Fridays were fun, especially for me from a content perspective. It's easier to make those videos.
Yeah,
And it was a fun end to your week. But I do love like the midweek treat, like being able to get excited to leave work or whatever your schedule is, and have that midweek kind of pick me up. I think is really fun. So I've been a fan of the Wednesday night format, and we had episode 2 come out, and I'll just lay the groundwork for the folks who didn't watch my first review. I felt like it was, I think I used the word successful, but I meant it in basically the bare sense. Like I thought it was a fine first episode. Like it met the requirements of an intro episode, but it didn't really move the needle for me one way or the other. It wasn't like, okay, we got a masterpiece, or okay, we got a dumpster. It was like, okay, that felt pretty safe, pretty standard. I had a couple complaints, mainly around, I felt like for only 7 episodes, the first episode didn't really kind of pull me in as much as you'd expect. Like the Bad Batch's first episode, which was just phenomenal. Part of that was the length. Bad Batch gave us an hour, and Boba Fett only gave us like 35 minutes. The other part of that was that I just felt like, what's the goal here for this character? What are we going to try to achieve with this character? And the show didn't really paint that for me, I thought, very clearly in that first episode. So I left feeling like there were some really good moments. I watched it twice, and on the second watch, I started to pick up, and enjoy it a little bit more. But I felt like it was pretty safe. So the second episode, I went in with my expectations a little bit really lowered, frankly, from the first episode, just because I felt like, okay, well, it's going to be kind of a more boring, like not boring, but more of a standard show. It wasn't going to be anything that was really going to rock my socks. It was just going to be kind of an easy watch.
Yeah.
So it was a pleasant surprise to me that the length had increased for the episode. I thought that was a nice change. I'm like, okay, we're hitting that 45-minute mark roughly. That's good. We're going to have some more things to talk about this episode. And so from that moment on, once I hit play, I was really, really happy with episode 2. I thought it was a really, really great step up. What's up, Dat Boy Steve? You didn't miss much. I'm just starting talking here. So there were so many things I liked about this episode. I want to start off with the central message before I open up to you guys to give your intro thoughts, and we deep dive a little bit. There are multitudes of ways you can make a successful, good show. You can craft something technically marvelous, right? Where all the technical pieces are really well organized and orchestrated. The visuals are there. The score is there. Dune comes to mind from earlier this year, where from a technical perspective, execution was just fantastic. And the rest falls into place. Acting is top notch. Performances, writing is just phenomenal. And you have that kind of masterful piece of work that doesn't move very quick. It has some action, but it's not completely action packed. But nonetheless, you find yourself loving it. And then there's kind of the flip side, where it's pieces of content that are just fun. They might not have the best level of technical performance. They might not have the most clean story. There might be some interesting editing choices, but you're just having a good time watching it, right? I think of Spider-Man No Way Home. I think not gonna say spoilers for the folks who haven't seen it, but I think Spider-Man No Way Home, like if you really think about the plot too long, you can start to question, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do that? That's really silly. But when you're watching the movie, the heart in it is so strong, you can't help yourself from having a good time, right? And it seems like the Book of Boba Fett in the second episode kind of settled in that, hey, this is gonna be a good time. Like this is just gonna be, you're gonna have a smile on your face. You're gonna connect to this character. You're gonna connect to this world. And there might be some editing things specifically that didn't really work for me. But I just don't care because I'm having such a good time with the characters and the world. And so that to me is a great place to be. And so I thought this was a huge step up before I get into specifics. So really like the second episode. What about you guys? If they haven't watched your review yet, give me your little summary. We'll start with you, Complete. What's going on?
This episode was everything. I can't even begin to explain how much I just loved this episode, because at first I sat down, I was like, all right, let's watch this and make a review. And I saw that 52-minute mark and was like, whoa, all right, I'm in for it. And honestly, hands down, best thing I've seen Star Wars in quite a minute. I loved every second of that episode.
Nice.
Okay.
I'm glad you liked it. I just want to start off from a little different tangent and give our audience and just ourselves a bit of different perspective, how different Star Wars fans are coming at it from completely different angles, right? For some, Boba Fett is like the biggest character, their favorite character in Star Wars. They have a lot of expectations. For me, growing up with the original saga as a kid, he was a nobody. I didn't know who this guy is. Like, okay, he just stands there. Then Han Solo kind of like, boom, where's Boba Fett? And he's down
we talked
there.
about that in our pre-stream a little bit, right?
Right, exactly. He's a nobody. And then when I came here, I started checking out Legends comic books and books. I still wasn't digging him that much. I'm like, okay, he's invincible. He kicks everybody's ass. He outsmarts everyone. These are not the type of characters I personally gravitate to, who are invincible. Their armor is impenetrable, And going into the show as well, I realized that, hold on a second. Okay, so we're in the new era of Star Wars and in general TV show and filmmaking. You can't compare something with the great old classic films. It's a new generation of filmmakers, it's new sensibilities and new cultural influences. So unfortunately, we have to do this, but we kind of do. Sometimes when the show is not completely great, you break it into elements and say, well, I like the visuals in this one. Or I like the story in this one more. Or I just thought the action is great. The rest is not my type. We unfortunately have to compartmentalize and say, pick things. But I believe in general, when we judge a show, I don't care if it's from today or from the golden age of Hollywood, everything needs to fit, right? You need to have good visuals. You need to get a good story, completely supporting one another. In this show, in this particular episode 2, it's still not the best. I can't call this show on The Mandalorian or anything else on Disney Plus high art cinema. But like you mentioned, it doesn't have to be. It's just fun and it's exciting. And to reiterate your point, when the good parts outweigh the bad, you can easily suspend your disbelief and say, like, you know what? I'm having fun. Why do I need to break this down into like Stanley Kubrick filmmaking? It doesn't need to be. It's marketed as a family-oriented fun. It's not marketed to be something like high-end cinema. Enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is.
And I think that's kind of where I've fallen. I think this comment from Stickman is kind of funny, which is I've never wondered or cared where the Gotham 6 came from, and I still don't, which is kind of a funny takeaway from that episode. To me, there were some really successful parts in this episode and some things that I felt were more mixed. But overall, I thought very positive step. And Seamus kind of hit one right off the bat here. Actually, I'll pull his comment up, talking about really liked learning about the Tuscan culture. And I actually have kind of enjoyed what they've done in the first 2 episodes. And I kind of think that arc is closing, which I also kind of like. I don't think we're going to spend a lot more time with the Tuscans. So, which I think might have dragged on. If they would have carried that on for like 7 episodes, I feel like it might have been a little bit much. So it was kind of fun. I kind of personally view him as, in the next episode, we'll see less and less of that Tuscan society. But it was definitely interesting because Tuscan Raiders are like hilarious. Well, I shouldn't say hilariously, but they're iconic Star Wars. Like they're really goofy, but they have such a like unique design and have been seen through so many important moments in Star Wars. From a prequel perspective, as a big prequel fan, Tuscan Raiders are there, right? Not just the men, but the women and the children, right? There's those characters that are tied in, and they're typically portrayed as nothing more than kind of these nomadic people with weird screeching sounds. And so to kind of give them some texture, for lack of a better word, give them some feeling, I thought was fun. I mean, it's something cool the show could do that we haven't really been able to do in a lot of other major Star Wars media, because I consider the shows and the movies to be, larger than the books or the comics. Even though, I'm a consumer of those, I recognize the larger audience is probably reading. It's mainly watching the shows and reading, than reading the comics, if that makes sense. So that was one thing that really stuck out to me. And in fact, before I let you guys maybe comment on the Tuscans, I did want to call this out. I will go ahead to the screen share here. So this top picture here is a New Hope concept art by Ralph Mcqueary. And if you see the shot from yesterday, you can clearly see there was some homage paid, which I thought was really fun, which was a nice, twist, kind of a nice little callback there. Again, characters that have been here from like the literal beginning of Star Wars to today was kind of a fun little thing to demonstrate there. So what did you guys think about the Tuscans? Are they working for you? Are they characters you cared about? Or are we spending too much time with the Tuscans and we need to move on?
Yeah, I would say the Tuscans are the heart and soul of this episode, and it's definitely what I want to see more from high-level, high-tier Star Wars. When you get to pause for a second and not explode all the fireworks and CGI in our faces, or like high-octane action that you see in the snippets of the trailers, but you pause for a moment and let us live in that world. It feels like with the current sensibilities where we're all social media kind of like disciplined, where everybody has this much attention span. We want everything given to us quickly. And you go back to the original Star Wars films, especially episode 4. It's nice that you pulled out the Ralph McQuarrie picture. the film moves at an incredibly even pace. We start with the droids, then we go to Tatooine, the planet, the Tuscan Raiders, and so forth. It allows the audience to live in that world before we get to the stakes, before we get to the excitement, all the thrills, and the Death Star, and all that surmounting, tension. And that's what this episode accomplishes. I feel that when we spend time more in the present of the Book of Boba Fett, that's where the show still struggles. And to me, it primarily has to do with the execution. The content itself is not bad. I like the families, the different factions that are trying to vie for power in Mos Eisley, but just the dialogue feels heavy. The storytelling is not a part. It almost feels like two different shows entirely. But when we get to the past, when we get to the Tuscans, suddenly things slow down. Suddenly the visual storytelling kicks in. They don't need to explain to you everything to dialogue. You see how he interacts with people. I loved how he communicates with them through the sign language, which, like you said, adds more texture to the Tuscans. Exactly. And once you have that, once you start caring for who these people are, they're not just these faceless savages who attacked Luke Skywalker in episode 4. There's more to them. There's different clans. Different clans look differently. Perhaps the traditions and culture that we saw in this particular tribe are not necessarily good. It's almost like the Native American tribes of the United States, which were vastly different languages, different customs, different religious practices. And same here. And my point is, when you get this goodness, this to me was like the main course compared to the dessert of action and CGI. When you get that, and it's so good, you suddenly start caring. You suddenly start feeling a part of this world. And X amount of years from now, when you have like little kids, hey, I want to show you something that makes me feel special coming back to this show. That's what it made me feel. I thought it was immaculately done. And that's what I want to see more of in this show.
Before we head over to Jimmy, I will call out, it's as always, it is different for different folks. I seen the Blue Pick in the comments talk about how the Tuscan stuff wasn't as interesting to him. And kind of said, I want them to wrap it up soon, but not suddenly. So like, we don't need to see too much more of it, which I as I led off with, I tend to agree because I don't think there's a lot more story to tell. Like, I feel like if there's more, we might just be dragging on at that point. It's just kind of my personal thought. And then I also saw, Dat Boy Steve call out, he wants a Tuscan Jedi, which would be kind of fun. So, Jimmy, over to you. What were your thoughts on the Tuscan? Is it working for you? Is that where the heart's at, or are you all,
I think it was wonderful because, you're talking about a character that had roughly 20 minutes of screen time in the original trilogy, now getting his own show. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of people like on Twitter and elsewhere complaining about all the Tuscan stuff. And I'm like, they're getting the same treatment. They had 0 screen time, a fraction of what everyone else had. So let us learn a little bit more about a culture that literally has like no backing to it. Like, sure, there's some reference guides and other books, but it doesn't give as much detail as we're getting in this show. And especially from the little bit that we got in The Mandalorian as well. Since reading a nice classic book now, Heart of the Jedi, we got a lot of focus on Tuscans in that, and it made me a little more interested in how that works. And now seeing how it plays out here, I think it's great. The fact that I actually like felt for them, seeing how they had been just shoved out of their own planet, just reading the subtitles there where they said the off-worlders have machines. I could sure, he was making grunt noises, but I read that in such a sad way. And I was like, they even have feelings and we're just not acknowledging that. And I think there is no greater place for Boba to have gotten back on his feet than with people that are true warriors at heart, just like he is. And I think that just plays together poetically perfectly. Now, I will say, I think it may have been more beneficial if we took all of the Tuscan stuff from episodes 1 and 2 and made that episode 1 and then had episode 2 start in the present. But I don't know if that would have translated well either. But yeah, that's what I think.
No, and it's kind of funny to me because Tuscans have been getting a lot of attention in the show. Because if we take us back to Mandalorian season 2, in the episode with the Sand Serpent and Cobb Vanth, right? And there's a lot of Tuscans there too. So it's kind of funny to me. They've really leaned into those Tuscans on the TV side. One thing I would say for me is there was a couple things with the Tuscans that I thought were some of the weaker points. And this is super nitpicky. So anyone in the comments understand, I'm just pulling something out. When he's finally constructing his Gothy stick, like they do like literally like 15 cuts of just like the same, like it was so like kind of like, okay, can we just like linger on the shot for 2 seconds? That sticks out to me as like one weak point. What did you guys think about the lizard? How did that work for you? I'm curious if you guys liked the trippy lizard or you thought that was kind of out of place. I won't tell you guys what I think first. I want to hear from someone else to take it off. I don't want to
Totally
shape anyone's
work.
opinions.
It's once again, it's part of the culture. It's something that pulls you into this world, and it really starts building Boba Fett, humanizing him, giving him character in this particular story. Forget the comic books, forget the Legends lore. Here, within the context of this show, we start seeing the human side of him and how he may not turn out to be this bounty hunter, gunslinger, badass that we expect him to be, right? He's learning this culture. He goes on to this dream quest, right? And it's lizard, like which very disturbing intentionally, right?
Yeah.
And it's like crawls into his nose, and then you see the tree, and now we're getting into the Joseph Campbell and the power of myth, like hero with 1,000 faces things with symbology, right? It's not something major or deeply philosophical, but him traversing through the Dune Sea, right? And it starts moving like water. And then you see this tree, which could symbolize different things depending who's watching it through their personal life's filter, right? And then he gets this stick. I thought, once again, it brought that minuscule droplet of spirituality to this episode. That he has to earn his right to be among these people, that he has to create his weapon. It's almost like more of a traditional kind of like thing rather than an effective weapon. Obviously, Boba is going to start using more advanced weapons in the present time.
He's got a gun in the mainstream. He's not like, yeah, exactly.
Right. But it was important to get that patch there for the Tuscans to say he's one of us, especially when they put the rags like around him. They're nothing special, nothing to look at, but it's like, oh man, it just makes you feel special. Yeah. It pulls you into that world.
Yeah.
And Jimmy might be about to say this, but I'll steal his thunder. There's some cool shots of Camino in there too during the tree kind of vision.
Fantastic shots.
That I like. For the prequel fan I did really like those. To see that, it's connected, right? I mean, it's so funny because what's really interesting about the Boba Fett character is, Tamara Morrison is more connected almost to Jango and the clones because that's his face. Like, he was never Boba.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, of course he is, but he never really was to us. So it is kind of cool to harken back to those original images and see those shots. But that was definitely kind of a bold take for them. I mean, it was kind of, a little bit wild, like a druggy lizard. I thought it was kind of I don't know if bold's the right word, but it certainly wasn't. It wasn't afraid of being a little funky there. So I kind of appreciated that they weren't afraid to make kind of a creative jump there. I don't know, anything you wanted to add there, Jimmy?
I mean, I was going to say, the shots of Camino were cool, but there was a few things I took away from this. The lizard thing, it was strange, but I love how well he took it. He's like, oh, sorry, I think I swallowed it. Like, bro, were you good? Yeah. I thought it was about to drill into his brain. But I mean, they threw spice in his face when he did it. So, if anything, I like that because it shows that, drugs are a thing in Star Wars and they can be a problem. And that was focused on some of the books that I've read in canon. There's a lot of talk about spice and that, like what it does. And I'm like, I like that we're focusing on that. So to see the effects of it, it was pretty interesting. Now, I have
a question for you. How did you like the portrayal of young Boba Fett? Obviously, the young actor, he's a grown man now. He's your age.
Yeah.
But seeing that little snippet of younger version of him, the way that it was cinematically pulled off versus something like Leia in Rogue One or Tarkin, which one did you think worked better?
I think Tarkin, is out of the conversation for that because young Boba and young Leia were just much a cameo, whereas Tarkin had a full-on role.
That's true, yeah. Golly, he did.
But, I mean, I think they all did themselves justice, even though, some people disagree about how the CGI looked. I mean, and that's fine. I think the young Boba is working better, though, because you don't really need to see him much. You know who it is.
True.
From the shots we got from Attack of the Clones in the first episode, and now these shots of him seeing his dad just fly off and just leave him there. You can't just imagine the stuff he had to go through. But if I was reading it wrong, I believe they said that when the seas had dried up, assuming that Tatooine at one point had oceans, which is what I think was really great about that whole scene, because when they saw the tree in the water, I was like, is this really did Tatooine at one point have oceans and have actual, vegetation and stuff like that? If so, I would love to learn about that.
Don't Tuscan Raiders view water as holy? Sorry to cut you off there, but isn't that one of
I believe
things?
So, yes, because it's one of the hardest things to get. Everyone else there, they have moisture farming, but for the Tuscans, they don't have that technology. They just rely on the black melons that are somehow grown in the sand. I don't understand that part, but I'm willing to accept it.
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing was great, and when he saw the tree, I was like, he's gonna get a branch to make a gaffy stick, And when I was right, I was like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was great. Weird, but great.
Yeah. Weird, but great. I think, for me, again, I really appreciate they leaned into it. It's almost like you just kind of own it. Like don't half butt it. Go full vision. Like have them get a tree and get a crazy stick. Like if we're gonna go this Aboriginal kind of journey, let's do that, right?
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that they went for it.
Yeah.
A couple other things I wanted to call out in the episode. Let's call it a minor thing before we jump into some of the big hitters. First of all,
right.
Let's go ahead and talk about how ugly. Do Pikes win like the contest for like coolest people with a mask on, but like lamest when it's off? Dude, because with the mask on, they're like really like the Pikes are cool. Like especially in the Clone Wars, they have that really cool kind of voice modulation. And then it's like every time, like when you see with their face off, you're kind of like an ugly little grub bug. It's like it cracks me up. It's like, why are you so? I mean, this is not a. Just to clarify, it's not like a negative for the show. They're just ugly aliens. I just find it hilarious that like they look so cool with the mask on, and you take it off, and they're like these weird little like roly-poly beetle. It's wild.
They're definitely cool, and I love like the way their helmets and masks are built. But I don't know, the leader took his off, and I was terrified. I was like, no, put it back on. That's scary to look at. It's just
if I remember correctly,
eyes.
Their whole like tiaras or these like masks / crowns that they wear in the Clone Wars show, they seem to be a lot more imposing in terms of like height, right? Especially when they have next to like
you're correct.
The team and Kenobi. Here they kind of like changed them a little bit, and I heard somewhere people talking about the different aesthetics. That's just a variation. That's interpretation of the alien species. They totally sold me as like one of the factions that is vying for territory in Tatooine.
Well, and it's like Ahsoka, they always shorten, because it's hard for a practical, to your point about the Pikes, like ridiculous size heads in the Clone Wars. Totally agree. Totally agree.
So you really got to think function when making these shows. So
and one thing I do want to call out for this show, and it goes into our next. I feel like we're okay to talk. I consider the Tuscan Raider talk not to be super spoilery, because if you didn't know they were in the show, you didn't watch the first episode yet. But we're going to get into maybe a little more spoiler-esque things right now. So feel free to click away for about 5-10 minutes and then come back and let's talk about the High Republic and other Star Wars news. There was some interesting additions to this week's episode. Specifically, we get kind of our first reveal of the true big bads, plural, or what seems to be the major opposition to Boba. One of the things I talked about in the first episode was, we get this mayor's major domo who comes in, and I really didn't like that actor. Not personally, I just didn't like that performance they did where he was kind of like, okay, yeah, like, and it's just like, what, like you don't feel as serious about this as you should, and not that Star Wars needs to be always super serious, of course not. It's many times in Clone Wars it's very goofy, especially. But to me, it just kind of takes you out of like, this is a real crime battle. Like there's real stakes for Boba. It's like, hey, I'm this kind of quirky. Now, if in the next episode that dude's actually like a cold-blooded killer, I'm like, oh, so he does that act to kind of like disarm you, but then he messes you up. Maybe they'll get me. But that's not the case. He's just annoying. But my concern is they were going to, make this mayor, who I knew was the Ithorian just based on the trailers, as part of the, that was going to be the main opposition, was this mayor. And that just felt kind of a little flat to me. It's just like, okay, well, maybe we meet this mayor, it'll change things. But they kind of turn us on our head a little bit, and we find out there is some, scheming going on with the mayor, perhaps. Maybe he's hiring assassins, maybe not. But we have some of the Hutt clan who are really after Boba in this episode, which makes a lot of sense. First of all, it would have been kind of weird if they wouldn't have come to claim. So I'm kind of happy they're going that route. But not just one, we have twin Hutts, which they were really kind of intimate for twins. Anyone else think that? They're kind of like snuggling on there,
Well, that's not. What do you expect?
That's true. I totally agree. But still, you kind of like, yeah. Anyway, so what was interesting about that decision, what I want to talk to you guys about is, one, do you like the addition of the Hutts into live action once again? And two, do you wish it would have been Hutts we've been introduced to before? Because we're introduced to a number of Hutts in the Clone Wars series. And these ones seem to be, at least from my understanding, they're not Hutts that I'm familiar with. What did you guys think about that decision? Where are you guys at with the new chubby slugs? Jimmy, over to you. How did the Hutts hit you when they came on the screen? Did you expect them?
I did not expect them. I think it's a fine choice for a few reasons. One, because it all clicked to me in this episode. The way he was talking with the mayor and the way like everyone's just kind of blowing him off. He's like, okay, yeah, Lord Fett, whatever, man. living
Yeah.
illusions of grandeur. And
Yeah.
then, these two huts come around the corner and they're like, because of documentation, we now have the right to this planet since Jabba is no longer with us. And I think that makes much more sense. And I think that's a great plot point because now, I don't know how Boba felt about Jabba all that much, but now that he's gone, he really didn't get his chance to really go at it. Now he's got two chances to really prove himself by taking out more members of the Hutt clan. And yes, they are new characters as far as I can tell, so we don't know who these Hutts are. I don't know if it would have been any different if it were someone else that we knew, someone, like Gardula the Hutt or anyone like that, because I don't know who's actually alive by this point.
Yeah.
Probably a lot because, like obviously Jabba was there from episode 1 all the way to episode 6. So they obviously have a very long lifespan.
Well, and in some
But-
of the in the some of the Crimson Dawn, or I think the first War of the Bounty Hunters, one of the Hutts is like literally referencing Chancellor Lena So. Like one of the really old Hutts is like, oh, that Chancellor Lena So. So we know they literally live for hundreds and
I remember
hundreds of
that.
years. Yeah.
Mhm.
So to your point, they live a long time. So who knows who's still around?
And the whole thing with the mayor I thought was great. One thing I loved about this episode was the mayor's Twi'lek assistant, because when they walked in, the guy's just like, you don't have an appointment. I was like, I'm about to knock this guy out. And then his Twi'lek guy comes out there, the whole my apologies thing. And the reason I loved it so much is that Boba is fed up with it, just like we the viewers are, and he just goes right past him. He's like, I'm not talking with you. I have something I need to take care of. And I was like, yes, this is what his role is supposed to be. A nuisance that is pushed out of the way. And I love that.
Yeah. For me, once again, it's a great episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I still had little alarm bells going off. And majority of the problems that I have happened in the present time in Mos Eisley. Found the dialogues were heavy. When we get to the mayor, that's where I felt things started to connect together, like cinematically, where it's like, oh, no, you're just Boba Fett. Hold on a second. We run things here. You're just a new kid on the block. Let me explain to you. You're trying to threaten me. You best find out who these Night Wind assassins are, because I might provide valuable information. You need to understand how things run here. And by the time the Hutts arrive, I was really, really into it. First of all, they are Jabba the Hutt's cousins.
Yep.
And for me, for somebody who did art for many years, or drawing and sculpting and stuff like this, I really appreciate how other Hutts look completely different. Like somebody mentioned the Clone Wars era or in the Dark Horse era comic books, but these two look close to Jabba the Hutt. We know they're his cousins, and for practical reasons, we understand they're CGI. It's a 7-episode show. They couldn't throw all the money in the world at it, but they were just immaculately done. They were moving right. They sounded right. That little Wookiee that we're going to talk about it.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about it.
Right? That was really awesome. But it started creating that sense of what the show is going to be about, and the episode appropriately called the families, the tribes of Tatooine, where it's like, no. Now these are the parties. Boba Fett is not the only big shot in town. And I also want to say that for some odd reason, those particular Hutts made a very distinct connection to the old school flavor of Star Wars, and specifically the A.C. Crispin's Young Han Solo trilogy. We know Han Solo's earliest days was dealing with the Hutts, and he learns to navigate that underground criminal world. He also sets himself up as this gunslinger and smuggler who has a reputation. And at one point, he even talks with Hutts on equal. When he goes to Nar Shaddaa, no. I will deliver this spice when I have time. That's the status that he attains with them. And even though we might or we may not see young Han Solo in this particular show, it still made an overture to the old styles of a Star Wars that I'm looking at. Oh man, it's great when you go into the show with the least amount of expectations, because you can't anticipate for something like this. And when it hits you, it's double the effect. We're like, whoa, I had no expectations from the show, but now they're pulling this and they're pulling that and they're connecting it well together in a very functional manner. I'm in there. I enjoyed that.
I think first of all, echo a lot of what you guys have said as far as, it's silly. I know this is going to sound kind of goofy, but I actually, even though another Hutt appearing in the show, makes so much sense. It's such an easy prediction. It never really dawned on me. which is maybe just a reflection on how, your mind sometimes goes to like the craziest things when really it's one of the most simple explanations. And it made a lot of sense. It doesn't feel forced, right? We talk about wanting not wanting cameos for cameo's sake. We want well-developed characters and plot lines. So I love that it doesn't feel weird. It's not like, oh, okay, they're here. It's like, no, it makes total sense. There's a relation to Jabba there. Of course, there's kind of a claim they're going to make. There were some cool moments in there for me. I know Timeline, you talked about it being one of the weaker parts for you. I think from just the kind of, Boba Fett, there needs to be some kind of stare downs. He's got to be able to be, that's just kind of his character. Literally like no lines in the original trilogy. He just there to just look cool. Right.
All right. So to add very quickly to what you're saying. And also Jim, you were pointing it out. His little clerk in mayor's office. That irritated me a little bit. That was so annoying. Just like that majordomo took you out of the experience. He did the same for me. I'm like, dude, Boba Fett is not staring you down. He's not even going to throw a word in your face. He's going to walk right through you like a tank. You're nobody to him. Like, what are you doing this year? You have little moments in the show which are overall building the character, but then something, a tiny bit like that just takes you out of the experience.
To me, okay, not to take a tangent there. The Mandalorian does a lot of that stuff too, where the characters will, like, to me, they act more like we would. Like, it's more of like our kind of humor. And to me, it doesn't feel like we're in a galaxy far, far away. Those moments are so minor, but I'm with you. They sometimes I'm like, okay, it doesn't really feel like that is what would happen here, but whatever. Back to the whole hut reveal. I really enjoyed the design of them walking on their litters, which how jacked do those people carrying those have to be? Holy
I was thinking that too.
Those I saw someone tweet out like the strongest characters in Star Wars history been revealed, and they just circled the guys carrying the litter. I'm like, no joke.
That's funny.
But to me, I loved the way they just kind of had a simple drum bringing them in, and how everyone, to Jimmy's point earlier, was kind of immediately like more afraid and more respectful of them than Boba. I kind of like that because they've been under that rule for so long, and Jabba was, in our limited experience, seeing in the original films, is kind of terrible. He literally has no regard from down to him eating little tiny cute things for fun. Or in this case, his cousins using a little tiny cute mouse thing to wipe their bodies from their sweat. Just such a disregard. Weird. But it's kind of disturbing. Yeah, exactly. Because it shows they have such a disregard for things lesser than them. Right. And so of course these people would be a lot more afraid of them than Boba. Right. As they should. I think it makes sense. I think even if Boba is the baddest bounty hunter to ever live, you would never look at him the same way you'd look at a kind of truly cruel crime lord. But we did have a major cameo in this episode, kind of a major. This one I did not have on my guess what's going to be in Boba Fett list when we talked about this. A character whose name I can never pronounce. I've only ever called him Santi because that's what Dr. Afra refers to him as sometimes. That's the only thing I can get out.
Black chrysanthemum.
Yeah, see, chrysanthemum is just such a weird. It's just such a weird word. Let's go ahead and pull up some of the comic artwork, right? What we've seen in artwork in the past. Just to kind of lay the scene. I feel like from a practical effects standpoint, they basically nailed this design, right? It looks like they did. I was very impressed. They went all out. It looked like on the costume, which I think was really cool. And I'll go ahead and pull up a picture of what he looked like last night in the episode. But what did you guys think about this reveal? First of all, tell me if you were familiar with this character before the episode. I'll be curious to know if you guys have dived into any of his comics or other appearances. Are we gonna? We're gonna see more of them, but are we gonna see some of those characters that are connected to him as well? So I don't know. Timeline. Where were you at with our boy, our evil Wookiee friend here?
I knew him from the 2015 Vader comic book where he originated. I was on board right from the start when the new comics started coming out. I was picking them up. I started like picking and choosing what I want to read and whatnot. He was interesting enough that I was like, okay, they have another Wookiee here. Chewie's not the only one. He's quite distinct. He's doing different things. I wasn't the biggest fan of Afra or her like assassin's droids. I thought they were ridiculous, but he made a lot of sense to me. And seeing him here was like a bittersweet pill. It's like it kind of feels cameo-ish, and you do understand that this show is a product. It needs to sell the hype. It needs to prep you for the next episode. The Disney Plus wants you to come back for the next week, right?
Yeah.
It's understandable how they're doing it. It may not be the most effective way to reveal him in a trailer, but in the show, but at least he positions himself with hopes of more to come. He's like, hey, these are the Hutts, these are the pushovers here, and I'm the henchman. It's like, hey, you want to deal with the big shots here? I'm their boy. I'm like, okay, that's a nice setup enough for me to look forward to the next week. He was very well done. He looked intimidating, and I can't get the name for the life of me, guys. The Krogan's Star Wars Next Generation, the famous Krogan. Oh my god. Jesus Christ.
Darth Vader. It's like, what? It's like,
No,
what?
not that Darth Vader.
It's like, what?
Let me look it up. I'm spazzing out. But anyway, the actor who plays, guys, I gotta look it up. Jimmy, you take over. I'm not gonna pick it myself.
So he walks onto the screen. I know who the character is. He walks onto the screen, and the first thing I saw, I was just like, that guy means business, and I'm scared of him. And then, like, I started seeing his design. I was like, wasn't there a Wookiee bounty hunter at some point? I didn't know it was Black Chrysanthemum at first. I like couldn't pull it out of my head. And then when I realized, sorry, wait for the camera to freeze.
Good.
I realized who it was, and I ran to my bookshelf and I pulled off. I have the script book for Dr. Aphra, which is like just it's the entire collection of like her comics in a book format. And I was like, yes, Black Chrysanthemum was with Dr. Aphra, which is a character that I love. And I saw a lot of people wondering, is like, hey, if this guy's here, does that mean maybe we can see Dr. I was like, I would love to see Dr. Aphra. I don't know how she would work in the story.
Outside of a cameo, it would be hard.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it if they can make it work. I don't want
mindless
cameos.
Boo, Aphra, boo, no.
Okay, calm down. Hey, the adults are talking here.
Hey, Steve is going at you here, Timeline. He basically said he's unsubscribing from you. Oh, sorry, I got to pull his comment.
Wait, you are? Oh, man.
He said not a fan of Aphra. He's got unsub. So
I loved Aphra. I thought she was great. So yeah, like, and his physical, his costume and everything. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
like he looks intimidating as hell.
The Worf from Star Trek.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Michael Dorn. I'm looking at this Wookiee, particularly his face. Remember when he turns his snout and he emotes a little bit? I'm like, is that Michael Dorn? That will make all the sense in the world here because he plays these like grandeur, like grand villains on television, right? It would make all the sense in the world if he portrays them. I want to look up who plays this Wookiee in the show, if they have like credits or not.
Well, as you're looking that up, I'll add a couple things. I'll add a couple moments.
I can see the similarities that you're talking about, though.
Right?
Definitely.
I will tell you guys a couple things. First of all, to your point initially, Ben, there's got to be some cool factor to your Star Wars villains. There has to be in design. I mean, going back to Boba Fett and to Jango Fett and to Grievous, it's very Star Wars-esque to have your really unique looking, fun bad guy. Partially to sell merch and partially because we all looked at him and said, wow, that dude looks awesome, right? I mean, there's some of that primal appeal there. I like Ben recognized him from the Vader comic. I'm like, yo, that's that Wookiee from the Vader comic, whose name I can never pronounce. And it's very cool that we're getting these kind of deep cut cameos. Like the cameos you got in Mando primarily were like, if you were a Clone Wars fan, you're getting all of these cameos, right? This is like a deep cut. Like there's a lot of people who are going to be like, who the heck? I bet you Black Wookiee is spiking on Google right now. Like seriously,
I mean, I will say like he's up there with Cobb Vanth for me. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, I love that they're doing it for the fans. It was cool, and to your point, it could set up kind of a fun. Because you have to have Boba Fett have some sort of kind of.
Oh yeah, because they know each other, so like they knew as soon as they saw each other, and they were like, "Great."
Yeah, you have to do something with that. So I was happy they did that, and Boba Fett. We all want to see him match up with another bounty. It's just kind of iconic bounty hunters, right? Even going back to the Clone Wars, going back to Bad Batch with Fennec versus Cad Bane. Anyway, I think it's really cool. They could have gone with an easier route, like bringing a Cad Bane in, but this was kind of a fun, which they still might, but this was kind of a fun deep cut, I guess I'll call it. I liked it a lot. That was a lot of fun. My closing thoughts, because I do want to talk some High Republic news. We've spent, the first 40 minutes or so here talking about this. What a good step up. 5 more episodes to go. I think that they're on the right track. I think I've liked a lot of the parts of, episode 2 had some deep cuts, by the way, for A New Hope fans. There's a lot of New Hope deleted scene references there. The individuals at the bar were 2 characters that were in A New Hope deleted scene, his 2 friends at Tashi Station, I guess I should say, because that's the other kind of deep cut there. There are, 2 kind of bigger moments for old school fans that they'll really appreciate. So a lot of deep cuts, I like it. It's fun. But not distracting. Like those are like little subtle things that you'll get if you don't, whatever, it's just kind of a little wink and nod to the camera.
I will have one smaller thing that at the very end of the episode when they were dancing around the fire, I loved that because, and I'm pretty sure it was the same thing with the Mandalorian where Tamir Morrison wanted to add more of his culture into the show.
Yeah.
So that whole thing was straight from his culture. And I was
Agreed.
just like, yes, this is amazing.
The Maori dance, I have to echo what you're saying. The Maori dance was completely just, it pulls you in. It's something that I live for. It's something that's in between the lines that you get from Star Wars books and comics or audiobooks, right? There's not nearly enough time, seems like, in television to focus on these things. And, for somebody like myself, I'm 40. I grew up on like classic 80s fantasy action and adventure films.
Right.
And it felt like those movies just had different sensibilities where they let you live in that world first and then get to all the high stakes. Here, sometimes when you're barraged with too much, it's just, you get sensory overload.
Yeah.
Too much picture, too much imagery, too many explosions. You're like, do I care? Like, how many Spider-Mans can you watch before you say I've seen it all before,
At least a couple more, baby. Let's go.
I haven't seen the new one.
At least a couple more. One thing I'll say before we do switch off, because I do want to switch topics here. Such just a endearing, likable performance by Tamir Morrison. It's such a big part of the show. He's just so likable on screen. It's a huge portion of the charm for the show. So major props to him. Really happy he gets to do this. Again, as a prequel fan, it's really cool to see some of these actors brought back into the fold. You got to love it. You got to love it. Well, my friends, this week we changed the background because this week the Fallen Star dropped for the High Republic, which was what we would think would be probably the biggest announcement of the week, and something I just started. So if you missed the beginning of the stream, do not fear, no spoilers coming from me. I'm not going to be, leaking any information because I haven't.
Everyone dies.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it. And I've really appreciated, it seems like their willingness to go dark in this story, at least from the promotions. I'm hoping they're not afraid to stay away from those darker moments. So only a couple hours in, so barely started. So far, so good. I've seen a lot of really positive reviews, so I hope I had the same experience. However, we had the anniversary stream, which when it launched, we did kind of a quick reaction, and then Jimmy did a deeper dive for the channel. And kind of didn't expect a lot. It was an 18-minute episode. And I was like, okay, so we're gonna get like a whole bunch of just thank yous and some artwork. I wasn't sure what to expect. Are we gonna get anything big? They said there'd be announcements. Let me ask you before we get
what's coming out.
Did you watch it yet, Ben?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna drop some bombs on you then.
Oh.
And Jimmy's gonna be able to help because he did a whole deep dive on the topic.
Like nuclear bombs.
Yeah, dude.
Well, what I
seismic charges. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. I felt like some of the news announced was really radical. Like it totally caught me off guard. So they had all the authors on and they covered some of their upcoming projects. And as they're going through, they're talking about, Kevin Scott said, I'm going to be working on the next wave of Marvel comics that launch with phase 2. Those are going to come out in October. And Daniel Jose Older said, hey, I'm working on a graphic novel that's going to come out in October. And it was a lot of like stuff that's going to come out in, later this fall. I'm working on a young adult novel, whatever. And so I'm like, oh, okay, we got some more books coming out. They'll give us titles later like they did last time. But at the end, they mentioned this to me, which was kind of a bomb, that phase 2, so phase 1 has been these first couple waves. Phase 2 is going to be 150 years in the past. Not like 150 years from a Phantom Menace, like 150 years before the Great Disaster.
Right.
So they're pulling the Star Wars-esque, you start in the middle, you go backwards, then you go forwards, is what it appears, right? That seems to be the logical conclusion here, which I got to be honest, is not what I expected them to do. I really didn't expect them to do that. And they also added 4 new authors into the fold. We'll talk about that in a second. But, to me, that is actually quite unexpected. I mean, you could see my reaction when I watched it live. I was at first I was like, wait, did they mean 150 years from the Phantom Menace or 150 years from like, are they going forward? And
Right.
no, it's confirmed by the authors themselves. They are going back to the past, which is very interesting. And I do wonder how that's going to be trying to juggle a new era now 150 years before what we just got introduced to last year. So a major shakeup.
Yeah,
Amazing. Did you know about that?
Like probably before the High Republic, because the High Republic is supposed to start in this grand age. So 150 years before, what are we doing here? Are we doing,
Wait, Jim, I was under the impression that when we get into the High Republic 232 years before the prequels, that the High Republic is already at its peak, at zenith, right?
And
all right, you know what? Fair point.
Right, and it was getting there for X amount of years. We don't know. So, it's a fair assessment that 150 years ago could be still the much celebrated High Republic zenith, but there may be other things happening in the background with Mark Shamro's granddad or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. And we're going to learn more about those characters, obviously, in the Eye of the Storm, Mark Yanro comic that comes out, which I'm very excited for, in just a couple days now. A little over a week now.
So that's the big news.
It is. Did you know about that?
No,
Ben,
I didn't.
Before it said, how does that strike you? I'll tell you the mixed responses, or I'll tell you the both sides of the coin I've heard. One of which was, well, shoot, I just met these characters. I don't want their stories to be done already, which I don't think they will be done. I think we'll see them in the sequel era that they will visit after. So I think phase 1 will be now, phase 2 will be then, and phase 3 will be in the future. And I think we'll visit whoever survives of the Avar, Elzar, Selengios characters. I'm sure we'll get some of those in their older years, would just be my guess. So I don't think those characters are dead, but I understand, right? But that's very Star Wars-esque. We just get those characters for a handful of hours, and then we don't know what came before, what came after, right? So to me, it kind of fits the model. The second thing I heard was it's going to be hard. Some concerns I heard was it's going to be hard for readers to be able to like stay tuned. Like it's going to be very hard for readers to keep up because now we're adding 4 new authors, which we'll get into them in a second. We're now jumping 150 years in the past. Like, how is an average reader going to be able to like keep up with all of this content? And I think that is legit. If you plan to read all High Republic content, it's going to be a lot. But the way I look at it is I assume the phases are going to be standalone, just like the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, and the prequels are, which is, yeah, you can watch them on their own. They'll make sense. But you won't ever really get the full picture until you see them all together. So that's kind of how I took it. Like someone could just come in phase 2 and just enjoy that era and never read phase 3 or phase 1. Right. And they only dive in if they want to. So that concern is kind of minimal to me as well. But I don't know, what were any radical thoughts from you guys? Are you just cool with the ride and you're down for whatever? Or did you want to see them stick around in our timeline for a little bit?
I mean, I'm okay with it. Once again, I take everything in stride. I don't build any anticipation. Wherever you take me, just make it good content, and I have an open mind. I'll eat it all. I would be more shaken by something groundbreaking where they would say that Yoda is going to take the prime stage in this particular segment of storytelling. Something is going to, because honestly, in the grander scheme of things, when you date back to something like 20,000 years ago and so forth, and 4,000 and 5,000 years ago, the ancient Sith War, 150 years, it doesn't feel that some kind of dramatic change took place in the galaxy. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. No,
I think he's right. Yeah, because I was thinking about that too, because they were like 150 years in the past. Cool. That's still a lot of time. A lot of different stuff could happen. But the thing that got me the most was people on Twitter, they're already like, oh, this means Darth Revan. And I'm like, why is that the first thing you go to every time?
He looks really, really cool.
That's like 2 weekends for Yoda, man. Like 100 years.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's like an afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
One other thing. Let's actually talk about the authors first, and I'll pull up one big reveal. So
yeah. The
I will go ahead and pull up the panel picture they revealed. I will go through these authors and butcher their names. So George Mann is the guy here on the right. Remind me of some stories he did. I think he did the Fables.
He's done a lot. He did Myths and Fables, Dark Legends, and he collaborated with Kevin Scott to do the Life Day Treasury book. Okay. And he has also already done 2 High Republic books. He's done 2 of the children's picture books, being what was it? The Battle for Starlight and Showdown at the Fair. So he's already done the most out of all 4 of these.
I'd be lying if I said I've read all of those. So my feelings are still pretty neutral. I'm open to any of that. I don't know. Does anyone have any strong connections to George Mann?
Nope.
Okay.
Not in particular. He's a new kid on the block for me.
Yeah. I think most of these authors are kind of new kids on the block.
Yeah.
We have Lydia King, who I believe is here on the far left.
Yes.
Give us the work, Jimmy. I think you got it all right.
She did a short story in Empire Strike Back from a certain point of view. Yes. The story focused on the medical droid 2-1B.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
She's got smaller parts.
Yeah.
We have Tessa Gratton.
Yes, Tessa Gratton. I think she's done something. It's not out yet though. She is working on a short story that's going to be in the new coming up anthology book called Stories of Jedi and Sith.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be roughly. Yeah, I think it's roughly like from a certain point of view. It's just a collection of short stories.
Yep. And then we have in the side over here we have I believe it's Zoraida. I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Zoraida Cordova. She is one of the only authors, I think, in this group that has actually written like a full-on book, and she wrote the young adult novel A Crash of Fate, which, if you have not read, do it.
Good.
Okay. It's a great story that's about a lot of like new, unique characters. It's not a lot of like cameos and stuff like that. It's kind of on par with Lost Stars, I would say. It's just a really great story. So seeing her come on here, I'm excited to see what she writes.
Very cool. Very fun indeed. One other thing that really stuck out to me from the special, I'm going to pull this over, and I maybe made a bigger deal of this than I thought, and I'm going to mute it because you don't have to even go loud here.
The producer of the Book of Boba Fett, Kathleen Kennedy. What?
That was it. No. As we're doing the intro here, as I've got it up on the screen, I want you guys to catch. They do our kind of standard artwork as normal. They do our kind of standard title screen, but there's something in here that's different than the last couple episodes. And I consider this to be a big deal. Well, that light was blinding me here. Starlight Beacon. Okay. Hang on tight. Hang on tight. Hang on tight. Did I literally miss it?
I think it's right after this.
They, in this intro little segment here, as I'm talking, because I think it does come up in a second, show a little tiny clip from, what is that? Hold on, like 2 milliseconds. That's from the Star Wars Eclipse trailer. And it was something that we had said, okay, none of the authors have really talked about this. Is it even connected to the High Republic initiative that we've watched? Like, is it just like this weird one-off thing? Well, they have full on acknowledged it in the High Republic show. So now I start to wonder if the fact that we're going back in time for phase 2 and then probably forward a leap in phase 3, is that phase 3 window going to line in a lot closer with what we see in Eclipse? And that's my assumption. And I think that regardless of how you feel about the game based on the studio in charge, this to me does mean, it confirms my suspicion the High Republic is going to get more and more types of content, more different types of content from video games, maybe possibly shows. You know, we can talk about that later. But the fact that they kind of brought this into the ecosystem, I think it's kind of an encouraging sign for the High Republic in general. Was kind of my takeaway. Really something small, literally like a millisecond clip in here. But to me, still really cool. I don't know. Was that a big deal to you guys, or am I just making something out of nothing?
I mean, for me, I think, obviously all the issues aside with this, I think it's important that with this, we know now that the High Republic is eventually going to move beyond just print media. And I think that is what's most important about this.
Yeah. And I think also that might reinforce what you were saying, that my suspicion was based on those, the Trade Federation ships that we've seen in Australia and so forth. This could be a lot closer to, this could be the days of young Count Dooku, right? Because he was born during the days of the High Republic. I'm like, okay, how is it going to connect with the prequel era? Because I'm always digging up for new prequel era content. That's what put me on the map, guys. You know my story pretty well.
Yep.
It's something that completely sold me on the prequel era, and I enjoyed that content. The James Luceno book on I'm forgetting
Plagueis?
the name right now.
Darth Plagueis?
No, not Darth Plagueis. The Labyrinth of Evil.
Oh,
Cloak of Deception. I'm sorry, Cloak of Deception. With Palpatine. It's a really nice and beautiful build up to Palpatine's future strategies, And when you have something that's early on like this, it serves as a great foundation, a great platform to something you've already seen. And to agree with you both guys, I really hope that they expand upon the High Republic content and make it really. If you remember, after Episode 3 was done, the biggest push in Star Wars was the Clone Attack of the Clone Wars show, right? And we spent so many years with video games and comic books and TV shows centered on that. I really hope they do something like this with the High Republic. Dude, if we get a live action or even animated show set in the High Republic, that to me would really turn the page over and make it the next big chapter of Star Wars.
It would.
Definitely.
And you have perfectly segued into our what I'd call rapid fire news section, where I kind of recap some of the stories, the smaller stories. And I'm taking us way back to December 23rd. I'm taking us back to before Christmas. There was a very interesting piece of content given to Lucasfilm employees. They had like a Christmas goodie box where they and on there was a number of projects referenced. Let's pull this up here. So this is on the side of the box. We saw this from a lot of different reliable sources here, where we have Willow, which is, I guess, a sequel to the Willow movie that I've actually never seen, but I know it's obviously a Lucasfilm property. Movie. We see the Bad Batch, which we obviously know is legit. We see Visions.
We love it.
What is this we see here? Tales of the Jedi. Out of left field. Man. Out of left field. Like, I don't think anyone was even talking about some sort of Tales of the Jedi show, because what we lead to all of these products on the side are Disney Plus projects. So naturally you wouldn't think, oh, Tales of the Jedi is an art coloring book they're doing, right? That's not what we'd be led to believe. So some people start to hypothesize, are they going to pull the Tales of the Jedi into the High Republic era? Is this going to be the show of Tales of the Jedi? It's going to take place in High Republic era. I have no idea. But that's some speculation. But I do know on this current stream, if memory serves me correctly, we do have a fan of Tales of the Jedi in this room with us. What is the excitement level for this? Does it mean nothing? Does it mean something? I consider this to be definitely a something for Tales of the Jedi. But what is that something? Guys, I don't know. Go ahead.
You know, I'm always like level-headed. You know, I try to approach everything in stride. I'm like, hey, it could be good. It could be great. Let's enjoy it all. Let's celebrate Star Wars. I'm going to be in a different beat, in a different mode a little bit for the sake of this discussion, okay? They're touching sacred ground right now. You cannot mess this up. And I know I don't speak only for myself. As a generation of fans who grew up with this comic book written by Kevin J. Anderson, this is literally fucking... Oh, I'm sorry. This is sacred ground to me, guys.
You know, like, he's serious.
That's right.
You cannot mess this up. This needs to be on point. I love my High Republic. Leave it alone. I don't want anything with High Republic connected to this. This needs to be where it's from. It needs to completely honor the past. It needs to tell me the tale of Ulic Keldroma and Exar Kun. Otherwise, I'm going to cancel somebody. I will, dude. It's like the laser eyes and everything. And I'll quit the show. I'll stop talking to you guys. Something radical will happen.
Oh, man.
All right. I'll call Kathleen. For me, I don't know a lot about Tales of the Jedi. I know it's a comic. I know what it focuses on. Right. I have never read the comic. I think if this is going to be a show, it should stay with the comic. I mean, Visions already shows that Legends stuff and stuff that's not canon works perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to hurt to bring any more other Legend stuff out. And I think with Tales of the Jedi, if they're going to do this, I would like to see an actual recreation of the comics just as a show.
Boom.
I would like Timeline's opinion on this, because for me, I think I would like to see this animated, not CG, like true cartoon. I think that would help it really shine. Yeah, awesome. Because I think, if you kept that classic like 80s cartoon style, I think this could just tell a very unique story and stand out above everything else. It might even be on par with the original 2003 Clone Wars that we got. So that would be kind of cool as well. But that's
all right, Jim. So the animated style that they use for the Disney for Kids?
Yes.
Where they have those like featurettes, character highlights. You have Vader one, you have Hera Syndulla, you have Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Give us that style. Beef it up just a little bit so it has like more frames of animation. It's a little bit more, but pursue that kind of style. And it's something that I would delight to see. I'm kind of like being in the modern age of Star Wars that we all are, you kind of get used to like 13 and 15 episode shows. It's fine, but I would really love for them to return to back to 24 full like syndicated show format of old with like 25, 30-minute episodes. If they do this, I will literally buy a ticket to Lucasfilm. I will go to Kathleen Kennedy. I'll build.
You're going to the Galactic Star Cruiser.
Yes, no, not Galactic Cruiser. I will go to her like apartment or house, wherever she lives. I'm like, Kathleen Kennedy, thank you so much. Can I please have a little bit of space in your house here? I'll build you a shrine.
Here's the thing. I totally agree. The animation style doesn't have to line up with the Clone Wars, but I think the format of the Clone Wars, as far as like 6 or 7 seasons of 30-minute episodes, is right for the. I'm a big fan of multi-year investments with characters. I think those give you some of the biggest rewards, some of the biggest heartfelt moments when you have time to grow with those characters. So I'm hoping Tales of the Jedi, regardless of what format it takes, which I hope, I believe will be animated in some form or fashion as well. I think it will fit that medium really well. I want it to be done seriously. Not like the show itself has to be super serious, but I want them to take it as a serious property and give it that multi-year, multi-season arc that I think it will really thrive in. And I think it's such an opportunity to bring in a whole range of new fans and get them invested. And hey, if you've got a streaming service you want people to subscribe to, if you got, a show that lasts longer than 2 or 3 years, it could be a really
old fans. This is the perfect olive branch. If you already hooked your new audience, right? There's an army of fans who enjoy Mandalorian, who enjoy the Bad Batch, who enjoy the Visions, right? How can you start making peace and acknowledge the fact that, like, hey, maybe our early years were not steering in the right direction, and we recognize that, and we hear you guys loud and clear, and without publicly coming out and pointing fingers or embarrassing somebody, something Disney is never going to do. What's the best way that you could approach old school dogs like myself? Like, hey Ben, are you a Tales of the Jedi fan? Here is a cake on your birthday, and with all the candles, and like, boom, enjoy the show.
Yeah, and I really think it should stick true to like what the actual source material was. I don't want Tales of the Jedi to be set after Return of the Jedi or anything like that, because Exar Kun and Ulic Qel-Droma are two pinnacle characters in that time frame, and especially in Legends, they set a lot of important storylines that continue out even well into like Legends, or not Legends, but a Legacy.
Yeah. Don't just use the name, is what you guys are saying. Don't just use the name of Tales of the Jedi. Give us that content. I mean, obviously, I'm sure no matter what they adapt, there will be some.
And it's okay to change things around a little bit. It doesn't need to be. It's not a Bible. I joke a little bit around how I get to take it all too seriously, but it's okay to reinvent. You never want a creator to take existing content and verbatim repeat it from point A to point B. You want their own flavor. You want modern sensibilities. Of course. You want to embellish it a little bit so it feels distinct enough. That's fine. Just stay to the main pillars and have a kick with it.
Gotta call out Steve here for the comment. I don't know if you see this here, Ben. But he said, Ben cussing and making ultimatums sounds more like Ben Skywalker than Ben Kenobi. Which I thought was funny.
Good old Ben Skywalker.
I like that. That's funny.
I do want to I'll quickly call out one of his other comments. He asked about KOTOR. The concept of the Old Republic is canon.
Yes.
The new game being remade is not. It is just a a fresh remake of the original game, and is sticking true to the source material.
There we go.
Can I ask the question, where is there like a source or encyclopedia that states that particular era has been canonized? Because we know Darth Bane is, but no Malak is.
There are references to a lot of some of the comics. I believe Revan was actually called out in one of the more recent.
Revan was called out in the Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary, talking about his army of Sith troopers that he had, which I mean really isn't off par with what he truly had. So hey, that's kind of cool.
I know Exar Kun his name has been dropped, right?
His name has been dropped. Bane's name, he was in the Clone Wars.
Well, we see Bane, right?
Yeah.
Bane is like Bane has a face in canon.
Yeah,
really. They literally gave him a face, which is kind of
the name the Old Republic has been mentioned in I think 1 or 2 of the High Republic books, and maybe even the comics, just in passing. Nothing is, but the Old Republic as a time frame does exist. Apparently it's going to be pretty rough. I'm pretty sure they're going to get to it because it's been dropped in like countless books. It's even been mentioned. It's mentioned heavily in the first Thrawn Ascendancy novel.
It will absolutely be
I mean,
referenced.
business-wise, it makes total sense. It's such a huge
Total
money-making
sense.
machine for over 10 years. They have to canonize it.
Total sense. Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I want to call out as well. Let's go ahead and stop this share. I have something fun. You guys know that I love my Star Wars. We know I love my Star Wars hoodies and my Star Wars merch. In fact, the sleeves say "a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away." So there you go. Hey, plug in your local e-commerce there. I did want to show you guys something that I thought was a lot of fun.
Oh, you got us a present? Nice.
Let's see. No, not quite. But they did launch here. Let's get this bigger. They launched on Amazon today a High Republic store for all. They have the books.
Yeah.
They have it, organized by book type. They have the merchandise and all that. So that was really kind of fun. And so on the merch side, they do have a bunch of new shirts. Like I really enjoy this kind of sweater here. Get like Jedi.
That's cool.
It's really cool. So anyway, I see more and more investment to the property. To the IP, right? So little things like this, obviously, it's not like a huge deal, but it is. They're promoting it. They're giving us games. They're giving us more things for the High Republic. So I think that's really fun.
Thank you, George Lucas, for starting the whole marketing empire.
Yeah, geez, no joke. My bank account does not thank George. My heart does. My heart does.
Absolutely.
Let's grab another couple of interesting stories. This was a huge one from before the break. I did want to talk about. But we also had today some fan art. I saw pop up on my feed. Someone made a 3-poster kind of arc for the High Republic, and that's pretty good fan art.
That is really cool.
Oh, this is really cool.
I like it.
Really cool. This is by Jake Bartok. Jake, good work. I think.
And like Drew Struzan style, the way he portrayed the original trilogy posters.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a lot of fun. That was really cool. We have the it's a lot of fun there. So good work, fans of the High Republic. We have so much content. Let's get the merch out of the way. Let's go over to the Fallen Order 2. A lot of rumors today. This is not surprising at all. We're going to get a sequel to this game. I don't think anyone is even remotely surprised there. But we are expecting to get an announcement in the next couple of months before June. So I don't know if you guys have played Fallen Order, but really successful new Star Wars property. Again, a lot of people like to talk about new Star Wars. There's a sequel trilogy, but like, man, there's been some really cool things coming out, and one of those is on the gaming front. Fallen Order was really good, really cool. So I'm really happy we're getting a sequel. And I don't know, have you guys played the game?
Oh yeah.
When you have a video game that has a story better than the entire sequel trilogy, and sells over 10 million copies, the sequel is in the making right away.
But what? Yeah, and that's like Fallen Order is so good. Like, it's better than a lot of Star Wars stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. I mean, it really is. It's very solid. For a game story, especially the writing is.
I think, the story is awesome. Sure, it's got some mechanical issues. I mean, it's a Ubisoft game. That's bound to happen. But like, the story was great. Cameron Monaghan as Cal Kestis was just a perfect choice. I loved everything about it. Like, it was great.
Yep.
And it's the only video game that truly made your lightsaber feel like it's a glowing death stick, and it's not just like you're in a rave party. Because honestly, every previous video game, including the beloved KOTOR, all these games, I know I'm saying blasphemy here, the lightsaber just felt like a glow stick. Here, it feels like, oh man, like when it hums, it has like so much character to it.
I love the fact that the game does give you some customization. So it's hard to tell a really great video game story if your character is faceless. Like, if it's just create your own character, it can be hard to get the world to feel kind of lived in, especially for a canon Star Wars game. Like, my dude can't be some guy with all purple clothes and pink eyes. It could just feel a little jarring. But they gave you some customization with the saber that I really liked, where you could change the style of the saber, you could change the color of the saber. I wish you had a little more clothing options. The ponchos were a little bit like, okay, can we upgrade? So that's like one thing from the sequels to make them feel a little bit more. But it did feel like authentic Star Wars, to their credit. Like, they didn't go like, hey, you can be a llama and you're running around like with the llama. It's like, hey, these feel very Star Wars. But I love good customization in a game where like you can kind of make the character your own. I love that, where I could be like, I'm going to go I'm going to go double-sided blade, right? I'm going to make it orange, right? I'm going to make him feel like a character I would want. So I hope they do more of that because I really enjoy getting connected to the character. Do we have any idea what year it's going to come out? Well, it's going to be announced this year. I assume the release date will be 2023. And knowing the video game industry, it will come out 2024 because that's where we are right now. Every game gets delayed.
I'm gonna guess for November of 2023, only for it to be pushed to March of 2024.
That sounds like a really good guess. That sounds like a really good guess.
I want to be quoted on this now.
BD1 is awesome, by the way. He's a really
BD1 is a king.
I saw Blue Milk Mama say
He's the best droid since R2D2.
He is. He's great.
He's so cool.
And the design is just amazing. He looks like a little creature, right? Like a little rodent or something.
Exactly. We've had a lot of droids in Star Wars. Obviously, it's part of the iconic makeup. And that was and again, all in a game. Everything we're talking about, everything we're giving credit was written in a game. So major props. And this is why I think so many of us were so excited for Eclipse. Look, again, regardless of that studio, I'm not even going to talk about that. What I want to talk about, though, is if they keep investing in the gaming side and give us quality stories, it's a whole new medium for people who maybe wouldn't pick up the comics or wouldn't want to watch 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, even though they should. They just want a game. That's what they want to do in their time. And they can get great
Star Wars is responsible for like turning kids into Star Wars fans, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those games are incredible.
Whenever that remaster comes out that we're supposed to get, they were supposed to get that. Talk about delayed. That was supposed to come out like 2 years ago. Yeah. I will be buying that and playing.
Hopefully this year.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. You have a soft spot. So, really, really fun week. Again, I love having the major shows throughout the week. It's something you don't want every single week of the year because you don't want it to feel special. But for those, 5-6 weeks that we're in it watching this new show, it's something to look forward to. It's something fun. So I do love the show time of year. So we're happy we're in there right now and the new year with the High Republic. So, well, guys, what's going on? Any closing thoughts before we wrap up? Anything we didn't talk about today we wanted to draw more attention to, or anything we need to plug for the coming weeks?
Sure. Somebody has made a present for me. Somebody present in this room has confessed their feelings for me, knowing that I went in and completely loved the Dune movie. Josh, once again, thank you so much, man. He gave me this for New Year's. Russian do, I don't celebrate Christmas. I celebrate New Year's. That's you know what, my man? I'm gonna hit you. It just literally arrived today for our podcast.
It did. Yeah,
right.
That's awesome.
Really awesome. It's for a Star Wars fan to branch out and enjoy something different that goes back into Star Wars back and forth, and they all connect to one another in some form, right? Because Frank Herbert saying like, "Hey, George Lucas, can you at least buy us lunch?" Because you borrowed ideas from Dune. Anyway, this is really cool. I took a quick peek at it. I can't wait to get into it. Dune is honestly the adults version of Star Wars, what we as adults wanted to see, right? Because we all know what the sequel trilogy is. It's like Disney-fied, fluffy, and goofy sometimes a little bit. We still love it. But when we want that cerebral high benchmark, as I like to say, art cinema, it's Dune. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, because we got Heart of the Jedi here, so I had to send him a book back. I was like, well, we got to do a book swap here. And you're dead on. That's one thing for me. I know a lot of people didn't like Dune. As you guys know, I've loved that movie. The new 2021.
How many times have you seen it?
I've seen it 3 times. It's really good. I saw it twice in IMAX, and I saw it once at home on HBO Max, and I'll buy it when it comes out in 4K. I really like it. It's not for everyone though. It really isn't, and it doesn't. Star Wars hits that for all ages at different times of your life better than Dune does. There's no doubt about it. But we still love Dune. I think Dune is really fun, and definitely Dune has inspired a lot, as I've talked about. You're watching the Wheel of Time, or if you've read the Wheel of Time, there's this order of women who can use special abilities and the men can't, and if they do, it's you literally see. And it's funny, Brandon Sanderson was doing his review for Dune. Brandon Sanderson, of course, wrote the fantasy series I love, Stormlight Archives, and he also finished Wheel of Time when the original author died. What was really interesting in his review, he called it a masterpiece. His review just came out a week or so ago, and he literally in it was talking about all the things that have been inspired by Dune. He said one of the things Dune suffers from is people watch it and they're like, oh, I've seen all these before. He's like, but all of those were inspired by Dune. And he specifically says Wheel of Time, which he obviously would know. He was greatly connected to that series. So I mean, it's not even like us speculating. The people who work on those are like, yeah, Dune inspired that.
Jim, have you caught it in theaters too, Dune?
I have not.
Oh my gosh. It's all right.
So, I know
we'll get you there.
Nothing about Dune except that there's a giant worm.
That's all I knew too. See,
sorry. the giant worm.
No, there's
The giant worm.
There's many worms.
I mean, like there's giant worms and everything, but Dune had the worm.
Alaskan bullworms from SpongeBob. I went to that movie literally not knowing jack. I think I told Ben when we were talking offline, or maybe that I thought I knew what Dune was about from the trailers, but I was like pretty far off, you know, and it was really good.
I had the chance to watch the original Dune movie from like the 80s. I was steered away from that very quickly. I have friends that are like, do not.
The original I don't want to watch because the original tells the whole story, or a abridged full story, and this one only tells part one, so I can't watch.
Till his face turns blue, man.
Right. Well, guys, thank you for another week on the channel. Welcome to 2022. This is our first one of the new year. This is the first weekly stream. You're going to be seeing a lot more of us, I think, throughout the year for certain.
We have decided to split 1 million subscribers, 300,000 per head.
Yeah.
So that's our aim for this
year. And we'll alternate the other, because there'll be a couple that are left, like a couple 30, 40,000, and we'll just kind of
we're gonna have to sign some paperwork, On High's gonna have them for the weekends, and then
and then we'll get back. Yeah, exactly. It'll be kind of yeah. Before we start,
I'll have royalties for the new logos that I'll
right. Yeah, we gotta start the beef like after we break up about who let us wrong. So and then that's how we'll do it. So well, hope everyone.
What a roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly. I hope everyone does stick around for the new year. I hope you guys are having a good start to it, enjoying all the new Star Wars content. There's gonna be a lot this year. Hey, does anyone remember later this year? There's supposed to be some show about, I think, Obi-Wan Kenobi that's gonna come out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little project. He was I think he was in one of the Star Wars movies.
He didn't shoot first, did he?
Yeah, no, he did not.
No.
Well, thanks everyone for stopping by on this Thursday night. We will see everyone again very soon. Make sure you like and subscribe. Stay tuned. Leave your comments down on Timeline's channel, on our channel here, and feel free to tell us what you want to see in these weekly streams. We love to cover current events, especially weeks like now where there's new Boba Fett and there's new High Republic. But if there's like Q&A shows we need to do, or a 3-hour podcast on why Revenge of the Sith is the best Star Wars movie, we can do that. You just got to let us know that you want it down below. So until next time, guys, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again very soon.